the news cycle obviously has changed enormously. We've moved on from newspapers, which were very much a daily news cycle. And it would often be one edition each day. Some papers obviously had more. And then we moved into broadcast, which became a much more kind of rolling news cycle, maybe even 24-hour news cycle. But with social media, it's become right up to the minute. It's a kind of collaborative, participatory process where when we had these initial ones, there were quite high barriers to entry as to who could reach an enormous audience, right? You either needed a printing press or a TV station, a radio station. Now, all you need is access to the internet and an app, basically, or just a web browser and an email address. And what that has meant, of course, is that anyone can reach a huge audience, and that's been hugely important and hugely valuable in terms of democracy, in terms of having certain voices which weren't previously being heard, certain stories which weren't being told. And it's been going up and up and up. And now more and more people are using social media to get their news, as well as to reach an audience. That's how they get a lot of their information. This is some statistics from Statista, which was for the most recent one. I think I did this a couple of months ago, actually. But it's nearly 2 million people on Facebook, 2 billion, sorry, people on Facebook. This was from last year in the digital news report, showing the number of people who get their news from social media. And this actually came out yesterday. In a lot of places, that's gone up. Some places it's gone down, notably Germany. That's gone up as well. I'm looking at the wrong one. Sorry, this is News Online. I did this late change late last night after the DNI came out. But people are getting so much of their news from social media, and even more people are getting their news online. And into this process, and the cycle of this means that the journalists and other, citizen journalists at big news organizations can publish their stories, but it comes more of an immediate cycle where there's a lot of feedback coming in from people on social media. That means the stories move on quite quickly. But into all of this situation come rumors, hoaxes, lies, generally what we call misinformation, what has been called quite regularly fake news. I have a bit of an issue with the term fake news because that generally gets used, it generally gets used by people to say, I don't agree with this. You get someone saying, this is fake news, when what they actually mean is, I would have reported this differently. But misinformation is the term we're going to be generally using here because it's quite clear what that is. Misinformation and disinformation are things which are clearly not true. Disinformation is the more lies and rumors and hoaxes which are shared knowing that they're not true with the intent to deceive. Misinformation is more generally comes under the kind of rumors. There's not necessarily that intent behind it. But it happens all the time. And it's not just, there are kind of the fun hoaxes, but there's breaking news as well. It happened during the Paris attacks. All of those images were fake, and those stories and claims were fake. Happened during the Brussels attack. It happened during the attempted coup in Turkey. It happened during the Egypt air crash, disappearance, and then found crash last year. It happened during the Nice truck attack, happened during the Munich shooting, it happened during the UK election, the French election, the US election. Every single day around big stories. It's been happening around Grenfell, it was happening around London Bridge, it was happening around Manchester. All the time there is people, and sometimes it's just people making mistakes. But as journalists, we really have to get to the bottom of this. We especially as people, as I discussed at the beginning, are involved in this process. We are journalists and news organizations aren't the arbiters of information or the arbiters of truth and the gatekeepers to information that we once were. People can share stories and share pieces of information to an audience of millions completely outside of the fact-checking process. But part of our job as journalists is to tell people the truth. And for a long time, these bits of misinformation that have been going around online and on social media have just been ignored by news organizations along the lines of thinking, this isn't true, why would we publish it? Why would we talk about it? But with social media, some of these lies are getting more of an audience, are being shared more widely and having more views, basically, than the actual truth. And that's why we really need to start stepping in and dealing with this. So, verify everything. Should be quite clear and quite obvious that that's what's necessary. Why isn't this? So that some of the steps that we often take in this, and the questions we need to ask are similar to the kind of questions we ask when we're doing a story anyway. You know, it's the who, when, what, why, how, where, the 5 W's and an H of writing a story. It applies to verification as well. Slightly different. But we want to know if we're looking at the original version of a picture or video. We want to know who captured it. There's some serious copyright questions which are really important there as well. We want to know where it was taken. We want to know when it was taken. And we want to know why. These are all really important pieces of information that help us understand whether something is true or not. At First Draft, we actually produced a little guidebook which you can download at bit.ly/vvguide. The V's have to be capitals in that. It's either like a one-pager with a kind of explanatory notes for all of this in a kind of traffic light system. So if you're at the top level, that's like, you do not publish this. You know, we have no idea whether this is true. And if it goes down to the kind of darker green on the yes, then we're pretty sure that this is okay. We've got as much information as we can get on this. That's really useful as a kind of print out and keep thing. We're going to be going through some examples and some extra processes, some other bits inside of this guide along the road today. Before we get into the actual tools and tips and techniques and processes, there's some really, really important things that we have to remember to apply in terms of the way that we think when we're getting our news on social media and the way that we kind of traverse the online news world. First one is to recognize your whoa response. It's the same as your news sense, right? Anything that makes you think, wow, anything that gives you a strong emotional reaction, that's something you have to take a second and think, hold up, is this actually legit? Because just like clickbait and all those clickbaity headlines, fake news and misinformation is designed to give us a strong emotional response. That's why it works. That's why it gets shared, because it makes someone angry, it makes someone laugh, it makes someone hopeful, it makes someone fearful. The stronger the emotional response, and that's what works on social media. You know, if you've ever been to any of those countless talks and seminars about maximizing your social media or whatever, it's all about emotions, strong positive emotions, but negative ones work as well. And misinformation is designed to trigger a strong emotional response. That's why it gets shared. That's why people believe it. So that's one thing, is to recognize that response. If something makes you go, wow, even if it's something that you think you agree with and you think that must be true, that's when we need to try and apply our skepticism and our critical thinking processes. The second one is to recognize your biases. So recognize your whoa response, but also recognize your biases and not let that affect how we do this. And this is, you know, these are the same kind of basics for journalism anyway. None of this stuff is particularly new conceptually, but it is in a new environment and with new and different processes and tools. Always be skeptical and not let our biases affect our willingness to fact check or the way that we think about pieces of information that we see. If something gives us a strong emotional response and it fits with our worldview, that's something called confirmation bias, which is a huge part of why misinformation works on social media, because we are more biased to believe something if it confirms what we already believe. That's why another reason why misinformation does so well is because people are more likely to believe something if it fits with their worldview or if it fits with how they want the world to be. Then it kind of bypasses our critical thinking because we end up going, of course that's right. That's how I think things are already, even if it's not true. So two really important parts before we get into the detail. Recognize your whoa response, your news sense, and recognize your biases, because those things often mean that things slip through the net. And it still happens to me, it still happens to you know, very experienced people that I know. Sometimes these things influence how they see certain pieces of misinformation, and it slips through the net. So we're going to do this in a kind of quiz format. As I said at the start, I thought this would be the kind of quickest and most fun and interesting way to get through quite a lot. So first one, this picture shows crowds waiting to see Donald Trump speak at a rally in Florida. Sally Smart here, with what looks like a picture of John Travolta in Hairspray, says the media is furious. Trump is not paying them. A crowd waiting for Trump at a rally in Jacksonville in Florida. Who thinks this is true? Who thinks this is false? Let's see some hands in the air. What do you think? False? Any true? So let's have a look. It is false. Hopefully this one should be quite clear. But this is like one of the most common, if not the most common, form of misinformation is an old picture being reused as something new. It happens all the time because it's, to be honest, it's the easiest thing for just random punters on Twitter to do, is to take an old picture and say, this is happening now, or this is some new crazy thing. Thankfully, it's also one of the easiest things to actually spot and check. This is all it takes, is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, and we can see that this picture is actually from the Cleveland Cavaliers NBA celebration when they won the NBA last year. All you have to do if you're on Google Chrome is right-click on any picture, most pictures, and go down to search Google for image. And what it will do is check to see if that image has appeared in the Google database before. It's called a reverse image search. And you can use all kinds of different image databases to do this. If you're in Chrome, it's the easiest one because you just right-click on a picture. And I do this, breaking news situations, any kind of picture that gives me that whoa response. First thing, right-click, search Google for image, just to have a quick check. It does it like that. It happens so quickly. And it's one of the most common pieces of misinformation. And all of those examples, nearly all of those examples that I gave at the beginning, from Brussels and Paris and Munich and Nice, they were all done by this. And a lot of them were published by people because they didn't do this very quick and easy check. You don't have to use Google, of course. There are other services available. TinEye is really good because what you get with TinEye that you don't with Google is you can sort the results by the oldest first. So that will show you where the oldest record they have of a picture. Google doesn't do that, unfortunately. If you don't get a result when you do the search, that doesn't mean that that image is brand new. It just means that Google or TinEye or wherever doesn't have a record of it. And it's very important to remember that. Just because there's no result doesn't mean that it's legit. It just means there's no record of that on Google.
Is it visually searching, or is it looking at the metadata as well?
It's visually searching. I'll see if I can do a quick example, actually. This is probably a terrible idea because I don't know what example I'm going to use. Let's have a quick go. Where's the... So let's just go to Twitter and find the first picture we get. Sorry, you have to see all the nonsense on my feed now. Let's find the first picture. What's this? No. Fine, let's just go here. Why not? All you have to do is right-click, and this might be quite a new picture. Where's all of this bollocks? Go away. Okay, that's obviously not going to work. Hey, no, he probably took that. Okay, let's take Travis Kalanick. So you right-click, and I've actually got this other one, which I'll come to in a sec, called called Revi. It's a Chrome plugin. And what Revi gives you is the option not just for Google, but for Bing, for Yandex, which is like a Russian search engine, and has been really useful for stories either that are about areas of Eastern Europe or Russia, or that I suspected have been targeted by people over there. There was a video going around the US election of people, Democrats stuffing ballot boxes. And all of the images in that were from, the way I found them was through Yandex, because it's a Russian image search, and it was a piece of Russian misinformation. TinEye, which we talked about, and Baidu, which is the Chinese one. And if you use Revi, you can choose one of them, or you can go all search engines. Let's just do it. It's going to open all of them, and it will give you the results for each of those. So Travis Kalanick, have we found it already? Google is first. It's thinking about it. Well, TinEye has done it already. TinEye has found some already from Recode, and the date was April. Google, what you want to do here is it gives you the result, and then it goes visually similar images, which is just more of Travis Kalanick, and then pages that actually include that image. That's where you want to go, because it guesses. It has a guess first, and it's right in this case. Often, if it's something more abstract, then the guess will be something bizarre. But you skip all of that and go straight to pages that include the matching image. That's the true results. And that will show you where that picture has appeared online before.
And the date
No, that would be the data would be uploaded. Yeah, yeah. That's the other thing is that we'll come to some of that stuff again in a bit. But that will be it will be the date that the page was archived, which is generally the day it was created for Google. And as I said, this is Revi for reverse image search. It's a Chrome plugin. I have loads of them, as you may have seen, all the nonsense on the top of my browser when I give that example. But Revi is really useful for just casting a wider net, basically, to see where you might need to look. So, number one, reverse image search using Google Images, TinEye, or Revi. Example number 2, after the Brexit vote, Fox News initially led with the line, UK votes to leave UN. Who thinks this is true? Put your hands up. Who thinks this is false? Put your hands up. It was true. Yup. But how do we know? This is the same kind of thing which we do as journalists and reporting anyway. It's just double sourcing, triple sourcing, looking for other reports. And if you see like a picture and you see lots of other people sharing a similar line, a similar story, but from a different angle, from a different shot, then these are all corroborating pieces of evidence to tell you that a report or claim is true. Really, it should be, I mean, when I was doing this, I just searched like Fox UK and UN or something like that and had a look around. I was like, well, there we go. It looks like they really did do that. And then they fixed it later. So just looking around for other reports which tell you the same thing. Unbelievably, that one was true. So check for other reports which say or show the same thing, the kind of stuff that we do anyway when we interview people, but we're just doing this on social media. Number 3, Lionel Richie has registered patents for everything from scented candle holders to dinner plates and loungewear under the brand name, hello, is it me you're looking for? True or false? Who thinks it's true? Hands up if you think it's true. 1, 2, who thinks it's false? Hands up if you think it's false. This one is, it's true. I love this story so much. But how do we know? Similarly, with what we do in normal reporting anyway, we just want to see if there are any official sources or official data which back up the claim. In this case, looking at the US Patent Office meant that we could see that not only has he registered trademarks for hello, is it me you're looking for, but also easy by Lionel Richie, hello by Lionel Richie, easy like Sunday morning, and about 30 in total, with so many different products. I cannot wait to get my hands on a hello, is it me you're looking for rugby shirt, for example. I don't even wear rugby shirts, but if it's got that on, then hold me back. So 3, look for official sources or data to support the claim. Similarly, just see if you can find other things to back this up and corroborate what you're looking at. Number 4, a passenger filmed the chaos inside an American Airlines flight which was forced to land because of turbulence. Now this was this story came up, this was last year, a flight that was going from Florida to Italy had to land in Canada because the turbulence was so bad that 7 people were taken to hospital. I mean, that's pretty serious, and this story was true. But pretty quickly, this video came out with someone saying, in Spanish admittedly, that this was filmed on board the flight, and this was inside the plane. Let's have a look at the video. All right, so pretty dramatic footage, right? But is this actually filmed on board that flight that the story was about that was forced to do an emergency landing in Canada? Who thinks it's true? Who thinks it's false? Everybody, yeah, it's quite clear. Why did you think it was false? Anyone want to chip in on why you thought that was false? Yeah.
It's very short, so it could be really...
It was very...
It's very short, and you can't really recognize any details, so it could be used for anything.
Yeah?
I think I heard background music.
Yeah.
I think it's from Flight.
The background music was a bigger way. I mean, there's reasons to be skeptical, yeah, but it was it wasn't true. And we'll go into it. It was actually taken from the footage was real from a flight that was that had a lot of turbulence, but it was from about 5-6 years earlier, and the clip was from a Weather Channel like documentary film, mockumentary, whatever they made about it. But in this case, how do we know? Well, let's have a look at the source, this Estrada 71. He doesn't give a name, he's just got a full stop there, or he or she, we don't know, we've got a picture in front of Big Ben, says he's from Maranello, which is in Italy, and we know that the flight was going to Italy, but looking around at it, we're not sure really if this is a real person or not. That's a big key, is this person a legitimate source? Let's have a look at the history as well, this person's kind of social footprint, social media footprint. Last tweet before that video was, according to Today, it's just badly translated, I apologize, but apparently today snow fell in Florida. Well, we know that the flight was going from Florida to Italy, so maybe. One before that, flooding in New Jersey. The same day, I suppose he could have got from New Jersey to Florida on that same day. Before that, things happening in Cuba. And before that, in Chile, like maybe this guy just really likes weather. Who knows? But the point is to have a look at check the source. Have a look who the person is that's sharing this particular claim or report or piece of information. And to look back and see if it fits and stands up, basically. If it seems like this person was at this place, was likely to have taken this picture or video or be able to report this certain claim. There should have been some extra on that, but once you actually looked at the comments behind the video here, people started to discuss it, and he started saying things like, it's not mine, I downloaded it, apparently it's from the flight, I don't know, as people started to be like, what the fuck, man, is this yours or not? Until someone else chimes in and says it's false and gives a link to the original. So not just checking the source and checking the person and seeing if they're legit, but looking at the conversation, the comments and the replies and anything else that's going on from other people who had spotted this. Something that I intended to add to this, but that I evidently forgot to, was, where was it? Was an example from the election. Was that last week? Was that 2 weeks ago? It's all kind of blurred into one at the moment. Where was it? I'm just trying to remember where it was. There was an example of a BBC reporter. Sorry, not BBC. Someone who was claiming to be a BBC reporter who was just making stuff up and trying to spread lies around the election. Where is it? Sorry. Oh yeah, I can't find it. That's an enormous fail. I'll see if I can really grab it from here. But it was a classic case of how, here it is, there we go, of the kind of fake account, like fake account 101, where people and the fakers, there it is. So this person was sharing reports over the election saying, UKIP EDL types are intimidating women and minorities outside polling stations. But if we look at the profile, it was brand new, June 2017. The profile pic, I did a reverse image search on the profile pic, and it was just a stock image of, man. And there was a brand new account, it was posing as a reporter, and there were no other reports at all of what he was claiming was happening. So looking at the profile, looking at using all of these different types of checks to spot the fakes by doing a reverse image search, looking for other reports which say the same thing, looking at the source's history. It was a brand new account. And something important to remember is that none of these checks and things individually should be taken as okay, well that box ticked, it must be true. We're just collecting evidence and pieces of information to inform our decision and our decision making. Next one. 3 club reps in Ayia Napa woke up hungover for a boat trip and accidentally went to Syria. True or false? I don't know if anyone remembers this story from last year. But true or false? Who thinks this one's true? Who thinks this one's false? Yeah, so this one is false. But how do we know in this case? Well, we only actually, this was, like many of these examples, people actually published, like big news organizations with big audiences published a story, and this was the case here. The only reason that people actually found out properly was after this guy started bragging on Facebook posting all the links to the stories written about him, and then chatting with his mates in the comments, being like, nah, mate, we made it up, lads. And that's how everyone found out. But that's too late by that point, after he's already bragging, right? How do we know before? Well, there's an excellent thing called in pictures. If you get people to email you the original file, you can look at the metadata of a picture. So, as an example, to show you what I'm talking about, this was a picture I took on my way in that you might recognize from the lovely approach to the building. And you can go to a site called Jeffrey's EXIF Viewer, and you can look at the metadata, so the, the extra information in an image file, which every digital camera will store. It'll give you extra information in the file, as well as the image, the visual information itself. So you can upload the picture, and you can see in this case that this picture was taken June 23rd at 8:30. Even gives you the latitude and the longitude. If you've got the location services turned on, it will show you what kind of camera it was taken on, what device it was taken on, a location guessed from the coordinates, and if you scroll down, it will even give you the kind of a point on a map where it was taken and the direction that you were facing. And those lads were actually, they were still in Ayia Napa. They just like woke up hungover and went for a stroll and took some photos and were like, oh, it looks like we're in Syria, done it, let's tell the lad Bible. And they published on it, and then so did everyone else. Because no one said, all right, send me those pictures, let's have a quick check. Everyone just took their word for it. So if you, yeah.
Sorry, that,
yeah.
So how did anyone, with those guys, no one actually looked at the EXIF data though?
No.
Because it was uploaded to social media, which strips it, right?
Yeah, but that's true. Yeah, that was a really, really good point.
But there's also absolutely no background.
Yeah, there were two other pictures as well. But absolutely, there were two other pictures with like just stuff in the background, but with Greek writing, like graffiti on the wall, and not Arabic for one. But you're absolutely right that pictures from social media, if we just download a picture from Twitter, it won't have the metadata because there are obviously quite serious privacy concerns around this. So when people share pictures on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and everywhere else, the metadata is stripped out by the platforms. So that's why we have to speak to the original uploader and ask them to email the pic. But this is just a very easy example for people to just go to a website and use. The other good thing about it is it's not just for images. Obviously, images are important, but it processes all kinds of other files as well. So you can see all the different types of files that it processes down here. One important one there is for things like a PDF. So this is a PDF from the CIJ, this investigative online search introduction. This was taken a screenshot from my browser. So say that you've got a PDF, this one example, investigative online search and introduction by Murray Dick. But then you see another one saying by Alastair Reid. You're like, hold up, who actually wrote this? Well, you can look at the EXIF data to see when it was created. So this was, it seems, it was actually taken from a camera and then converted into a PDF. And when you look at it initially, it's got the date, July 9th. This is the exact EXIF data for both of them. But if you go down to further down in it, you can look at the modified date, which this was last night for the Alastair Reid one, and the Murray Dick one was 2011. So if you have two copies, or if you have two examples or something, or if the date, the date that it was apparently created, July 9th, 2010, but then the modified date was 7 years later, that's a bit of a red flag. This being closer together is still, to be honest, still a bit of a red flag that it was that far apart. I don't know why. Maybe it was they took it down and then re-uploaded it. But these are, again, just pieces of information, things that you want to look at if you are suspicious about where and what something might be.
Is that giving you more data than if you just went see properties on the file? When normally with a PDF file, you can see who was the last person.
So I'll show you real quick on here what that actually looks like for that PDF. If we go to Jeffrey's, dragging and dropping, click the little capture thing, view image data. This is for the PDF. And it's going to take a while because it's like 27 pages. But you scroll down, it hasn't got any of the location data because it's a PDF, and you get all of this. So that's the EXIF data, which is for images. And you get all kinds of stuff about the aperture size and the type of device it was taken on and all this other stuff. Because it's a PDF, We actually want to go past that to the PDF data, and this is all the information you get in terms of the page count, how and when it was created, and lots of other more advanced stuff. I mean, to be honest, I tend to skip to the particular signs of what it might be that might give it away that it's a fake. So the creation date, the image that it was last, the software that it was last used by, that it was last saved by, as those kind of clues, and generally look at it in a bit more detail than just these parts. That's important. It's a good thing to know, and especially if you're a bit suspicious about something or it seems too good to be true, ask the source to email you the original file of whatever it might be and have a look at the EXIF data. Where are we? Next one. A killer clown was chased out of a village in Cambodia straight into a field of landmines. True or false? Anybody think this is true? Anybody think this is false? Yep, it is. I'd forgotten I did that. Yes, this one is false. But again, like a lot of them, this was published all over the place. Loads of places were just like, yeah, killer clown, landmine, Cambodia. The thing is that all of them were saying that the Times of Cambodia was their source. But what is the Times of Cambodia? This happens all the time as well. You'll see some crazy story from far afield, and somewhere, maybe in there, they'll say where they got it from. A lot of them actually were saying, you end up seeing like, oh, the Daily Mail reports, the Mirror reports, the Star or whatever reports. Go back, like the first point, to find the original, even if it's the original story. If you see X reports, go to their version and go back and try and find the original. And in this case, you get to the Times of Cambodia. But what is the Times of Cambodia? Well, this is the website. It looks okay, I guess. They've got the man wearing clown mask killed by landmine. They've got new report, Southeast Asian air pollution, Chinese businessman vows to fund new, blah, blah, blah. Lots of stories that seem like that. But there's no record of an actual newspaper called the Times of Cambodia. What you can do with a website that you're a bit suspicious of is do a WHOIS search. You can use any of these websites, which are okay. My favorite way to do a WHOIS search, and this is looking at the kind of, it's like EXIF data for websites. It's the background information. We'll do more detail of that in the next session. But you can do a WHOIS search, and it will give you information about when the website was created, who set it up. My favorite is just to go to who.is/whois/ and then the website, and I just copy the URL, type that in, copy and paste the website address, and it will give you all kinds of information about what this website is, who set it up, and when it was set up. Now, this website was set up, creation date, 16th of October 2016. The story was published 19th of October 2016. The site was 3 days older than the story. And you'll see this quite a lot, is someone will set up a website, copy and paste a load of stories from other sites to make it look legit, and then publish a couple of ridiculous viral hoaxes, whack a load of ads around it, clean up, and then just forget about it and leave it untouched. And this happens all the time. But if you look at the WHOIS data and the creation date, the website, if it's brand new and it's pretending to be a legit website, that's a massive red flag. And this has happened time and time again. It's like, I think it was like the Boston Leader published the story about, what was it? That a Chinese zoo has named their new baby gorilla Harambe Muk Harambe Face. And people actually published on that. Loads of places were like, Chinese zoo, Harambe Muk Harambe Face. But it was nonsense. And it was the same kind of thing. It was a new website set up a couple of days before a crazy story. Happens all the time. Equally, looking at, just looking at like the about page. If you're tracing a crazy story back to the original source, sometimes that's just a satire site. There was a story recently which was that a pastor in Nigeria told his followers that he could walk on water and he got eaten by crocodiles. And you may have seen this. And if you trace that back, it was just from a satire site. And it got picked up by like it's from like a Nigerian satire site. They said it happened in Zimbabwe. It got picked up by, someone believed it on some fairly small Nigerian or Zimbabwean news website. And then someone like the Star or the Express or whatever, or I'm not entirely sure where, saw it and were like, great story, let's publish. If you trace back, it was just from a satire site. So do a WHOIS search on the website or on domain names to find more information about them. The last one we're going to look at here is a little bit graphic, but that's what we end up dealing with quite a lot as journalists, especially at the moment, unfortunately. So this video shows the aftermath of a bombing in Al Makalla in Yemen on May the 15th, 2016. And this was a tweet that was sent on May the 15th saying, it's translated from Arabic, saying from Makalla today. It's a kind of garbled translation. But this was the only video that appeared from this event. Let's watch the video. And again, heads up that it's a bit graphic. Most of the parts of it have been pixelated, but warning anyway. So, fairly graphic, fairly nasty stuff. This was the only video which appeared from this particular event. Do you think it's true? Do you think it's false? Anybody thinks it's true? Anybody thinks it's false? It's very hard to tell. It's very hard to tell. Yeah, that's absolutely right. But it's something which, if we're covering this story and if we hear about this and if we see this video and we want to use it, we have to verify whether it is true or not. This one was true. But how do we get there? How do we get to that point when we know it's legit? When you don't have any other information about a picture or a video, you have to use the actual visual information that's there, the visual clues in the imagery, and then use that to try and corroborate basically with online maps and Street View and stuff. So in this case, we can look with all of this, the things we want to look for and look at are street signs. So are there any street signs? Are there any phone numbers? Are there any business names? Are there any road signs? Is there any text? Anything that we can see and you might need to go frame by frame to see this, and you might need to zoom in on certain parts of it, and we'll go into in the next part some of the things we can use to do that. But it's really important to look for any kind of information, any signs that are in the footage that you can then search for elsewhere. What clothes are people wearing? Is different parts of the world, people wear different types of clothes. Does that fit with where this is purported to be? What about the landscape? Are there any mountain ranges, rivers, bridges, trees, sandy terrain? What does it look like that you can actually compare with maps and satellite imagery? This picture here, I wouldn't say that's Europe. I wouldn't say that's Northern Europe. It looks either sub-Saharan Africa or Asia to me, based on the images you have there. But you can still try and track that down. And if it's a video, it gets easier. What structures are there? Any statues, fountains, water towers, tall buildings, things, landmarks basically, that you can find on other maps and that you might be able to find other pictures of that will match and give you an example and show you that it's where it is or isn't. What's the weather like? Obviously, in different parts of the world, the weather is different, and this also helps with verifying the date, as I think that's included in this bit. If not, I'll explain it. What about the flags and the insignia? Are there any marks on the vehicles as well that might give us a clue as to who these people are, where they're from, where they are? And the vehicles as well, of course. Number plates, what the vehicles look like. These are all things and all pieces of visual information that we can use to piece together and try and give us an idea of where this might be. So for this example, let's have a look at the video. And obviously the first thing that we're drawn to is the people. Don't look at the people this time. Look at everything in the background. Piece together all the visual clues and anything that might help us to think about where this might be that we could then look for. Okay, Excellent. So the mountains, the gate, other stuff? The language, yeah, the language would absolutely help when there's audio, and there's, yeah, absolutely, 100%.
There was a sign as well at the very beginning, so you can see some sort of sign.
Yep, there's some signs.
There's a roadblock.
There's a road and a roadblock, yep.
It's a
Dual carriageway, yep. Some of the vehicles, yep. Anything else?
And there's something in the background that either looks like a row of cars or something.
Yep.
Far off that you can zoom in.
So these are all important clues to help us to piece it all together. But we heard that it was on, was it May 15th? We heard that it was earlier in the morning. And if you have shadows, SunCalc is a really good website for checking whether that's legit. Because you can choose any point in the world and choose any date and any time, and it'll tell you where the sun is, the angle of the shadows, the length of the shadows. Because it's just physics, right? So it basically calculates that for you. If you look at the first part, you see this guy, his shadow is quite long. You can see kind of what direction it's going. If we look at Macala, we can see that to the south is open sea, and to the north there's this, I don't think I've got the satellite view on, but the city is here, and this place is relatively open. So if we're looking at that first guy, in the background here, it's completely open. We can tell quite quickly that it's not in the city because it's not a built-up area. It's all quite open. So this area is completely open sky, and as you spotted, the mountains to the north. Whoops, we've also got quite a long shadow on this guy, and so if we look at the map and we use SunCalc, we can think, well, if this is 8 in the morning, then the shadow, this is the sun, the shadows are pointing that way. To the south is open sea, and to the north are the mountains. We get a fairly decent idea of which direction this guy is facing when he took the video. And the great thing as well is that he does a 360, and you start to see the roads. He basically does this, right? Start to see the buildings, the roads, the mountains, building on top of the hill, and the gate and everything else that we can start to piece together. An idea of which direction he's facing and what might be where when we're looking at the online maps. In the background, we've got the road and the trees. We've also got the building to the south, another building on the hill kind of to the northwest, and then the mountains to the north. So if we look on the satellite view for Almacala, there's the city itself. We've already established that it's not in the city because there are only 2 buildings in the whole thing and a big open space and mountains, so we can be fairly sure that it's not here. We can either think it might be here or it might be over here and start looking around. It was actually over to this area to the southwest. And when you start to piece this all together, you can see that there is the road with the kind of the shrubs, the trees on the central reservation. There's the building to the south, which has quite unique windows, which we'll come to in a minute. There's the building to the northwest on the hill, and there was the mountains to the north as well. In terms of these quite unique looking windows, and this was in Google Earth, Google Earth has a thing called Panoramio, which is basically verified images tagged to a specific location that users have taken and uploaded, and they've been reviewed by moderators. And you can see these 2 pictures here show those previously taken photos there and there that match pretty clearly the quite unique looking windows that we see in the building as well. And finally, if you don't have, not everywhere has Street View. Sometimes it's the Street View cars, Google's cars haven't been there. But on Google Earth, for that, you can either use Panoramio in cases like this, or in extreme cases, if you really have to, it gives you a kind of computer-generated representation of the landscape, which is kind of last resort. It's better than nothing, which is useful as well. And we can tell that case was actually legit. So the final one was using those kind of visual images, visual clues, in the images to help us piece together and find that location on public maps as well.